I needed someone that can help me do the plans and engineering, help me phase out the execution of improvements,
Mhm.
and help me shape and then execute my strategic vision for our company. And so I wanted a partner that could deliver that level of teamwork with me because I don't
Sure.
have a staff. And so far, that's exactly what I have found in Corsica.
Well, welcome to our latest episode of Unraveling IT, Expert Tech Talks. I'm your host today, Jared Lopez. I'm a VCIO at Corsica Technologies, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with a good friend, Carl Young. He's the Chief Information Officer at ATC Development. Thanks for joining us, Carl.
Thanks, Jared. Glad to be here. Looking forward to our chat.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, would you mind starting, kind of give us an overview as far as your background and your career path as it is today?
Yeah, so I am a native of South Carolina, and wound up joining the Army when I was a sophomore in college, and from there became a signal officer, and later a systems engineer, and later a cyber operations officer over the previous 27 years. And I retired as a colonel from the Army Signal Corps in 2021. And I was down here in Augusta, Georgia, then Fort Gordon, now Fort Eisenhower, where I did conclude my time. But in that process, I managed to gain a tremendous set of opportunities and skills, just looking at how really global enterprises work.
Yeah.
And coming out of my time in the Army, I had an opportunity with a good friend of mine, the owner of ATC Development, Woody Belangia, who asked for a little bit of help. That help turned into a conversation. The conversation turned into an opportunity, and we are working together to really make ATC Development become a leader in not only how we do multifamily housing, apartments is what
Yeah.
we do, and and how do we enable technology for not only our own operations but to make the lives of our residents even better.
Carl, that's why I like talking to you, because when I was looking through everything you've done, like you've owned your own businesses, you've taught at Greenfield Tech, you've been in the Army in various positions that are pretty amazing, but also not also that, I mean, you've been to school your whole life. Like you are a forever student. And what I mean by that is you have so many degrees, you have so many certifications. What I love to see in that is something I try to cultivate myself, is that forever learner. And I think that really kind of shows in the pursuit of cyber, the pursuit of IT, and all of these things is wanting to know more. And I really see that. What kind of drives that for you, Carl?
I don't know exactly what drives it. I'm a naturally curious person. I love just figuring things out and learning. I was that really obnoxious student that if you didn't overload him with work, he became a problem, in school. And in fact, I just recently had a conversation with my father, who was a banker in South Carolina, did 47 years in community banking, and a really phenomenal human, in certainly my opinion. But Dad said, you don't know this, but we told your teachers from early on, never let him run out of work to do, and always keep him a little bit overloaded. I was like, thanks, Dad, appreciate it. But as a result, and just enjoying the process of learning, yeah, I've had an opportunity to become pretty skilled at a lot of different things. One of the things I like to point out is my undergraduate degrees are in liberal arts, they're history and government, but I'm a technician. And
Yeah.
people say, well, that didn't make a whole lot of sense. I disagree. I think the human element and understanding our history, understanding how we govern ourselves in particular, is critical to understanding technology, especially as we start to venture out into AI and see where the future's going, how is it going to go. And people are excited about the bright, shiny thing called technology, but we often lose sight of what's going to be the impact on people and society and the way we interact. And I think that's
Yeah.
that's one of those fundamental things that we all ought to learn more of.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. So you said that ATC provides homes for people, right? How do you take that in the sense of what you know from history, from your time in the Army, from owning your businesses, and all this knowledge you have, and really apply it to ATC? Like, where does that fit in as far as like their model and their core values?
Our core values are the essence of how we do business. In fact, we have a great business model by which I don't get an annual report on how many IT projects I've delivered. I get an annual report on how I stand up to and support our core values. Things like
Mm.
working together, be a professional, work enhances life. And it reflects the true character of the owner, Woody, who understands, like I do, the person is the most important thing. And
Mm.
sometimes that comes at the expense of the profit. And
Yeah.
so, what's our charter? What's our job? Well, we develop properties. Yeah, we build apartment complexes and we manage. That's great. That's not what we do. We provide
Mm.
homes for families.
Yeah.
We take care of the families of our employees. And so, where does technology come back into play? Well, to me, it's how can I make my job a little easier? How can
Hmm.
I protect the resources that are somehow under or near my umbrella? And
Mm.
ultimately, how can I improve the lives and outcomes of our people? Our 2,500 residents, and what they do, and our you know 60-ish families that work for ATC Development.
I'm glad you brought up a couple of the core values. One I really like, which is it's funny in one sense because it says value, but it's build value. And I think that's really kind of what you kind of hammered on. It's almost like it goes back to what you're doing is you're bringing value in everything you do. You see the people as valuable, you see the workers' lives as valuable, and everything you do kind of elevates that human touch that really kind of brings out everything in it.
Well, and I think particularly looking at the cybersecurity aspect of exactly that is how do I protect
Mhm.
that value?
Yeah.
Your information is important. How do I ethically uphold your privacy? Manage or enhance your existence in this space.
So that being said, within this space, within the people, within the core values and how you operate, is there any unique challenges that you would say ATC has over other places, or has it been business as usual as far as cyber and just keeping people safe?
Two very distinct ways I have to look at my job space.
Hmm.
I guess first is the operations and efficacy of the ATC organization, right? So that's very traditional in its IT role. Making sure your workstations are functioning properly. The mantra that I share with the team is, I don't want you fighting your technology. I want your technology to just work. And really, that's where Corsica has been a tremendous asset. And I'm sure we'll get into that as a part of this conversation. But you can't do that by yourself.
Sure.
But I wanted to make sure that the team knows the technology is the tool. My job is to make sure the tool is working as expected.
Yeah.
Now, the other piece of that is what potential impact, future impact, other impact could technology in general have with our residents? And this is
Mm.
something we're just scratching at. We're not deep into it, but think about the potential of technology from artificial intelligence to
Hmm.
anticipate energy savings, maybe moving us towards technologically enabled greener buildings, better security, better
Mm.
response time for known issues, sensors on air quality, water quality, humidity. If humidity suddenly
Hmm.
spikes, you've blown a pipe somewhere.
Hmm.
And now I'm trying to anticipate a damage to your home where you live. And
Mm.
obviously in doing so, I improve my business footing as well.
Sometimes I don't always think of myself as a half glass empty kind of person, but when you were talking about the impact, I was thinking unintentional consequences, like you make a change and you don't know how it spirals down. You were thinking the better way of it, of this is how we can do things better. This is how we can provide a better service, and this is how do we get ahead of these problems with technology? How do we use technology to be the way I always like to think about it is like a force multiplier.
That's exactly right.
So.
So, keeping our employee footprint is small means I can kind of afford to do better things for the residents, which improves my product. Obviously, that's a
Yeah.
business reason. But then there's the outcomes that you're talking about. How do I ensure that our Sky Lounge, our new property at the Augustin in downtown Augusta, how do I make sure that thing's safe? How do I make sure that
Hmm.
come fall, when the Clemson Tigers actually destroy the Georgia Bulldogs in the opening game of the season, that everybody up there is enjoying a great show?
Yeah.
That we're having a good time. We're building a social space that's part of life. Well, my
Mhm.
job is to make sure the technology works to enable that.
So let me ask you this. Before, we started this relationship of us working together, what would you say are the pain points or even pain points now? I mean, obviously, as soon as we start working together, not everything goes away, right? But what kind of you experienced before and maybe what is, things as we're kind of going forward?
Well, it's interesting you ask it that way because just over a year ago, Woody and I were having dinner. We played trivia at a place in North Augusta, and we're just talking. He says, "Hey, I think you could help us." And my question to him was, "Okay, what are your pain points? What hurts?" He said, "Well, come in and talk to the team." And I did. I met with the executive group and said, "Guys, let's on a whiteboard right now talk through the pain that you know exists." And frankly, it started in what I would call the small pool of reality of where we are every day. Well, I fight printers and my computers are old and I don't have rapid response when I call, our help desk or whatever, right? And then as I started talking them through that, we began to understand, well, I don't have really good resilience. I don't have the cyber protection posture that I need. I don't really, I'm not training my people to be smart in this very tech-enabled world. And these problems get bigger. And part of my job is to help tease those things out, to identify the problems that are in line with our priorities, our values, that aren't always making sure the keyboard's connected to the back of the computer, a lot larger. And so I would say training is pain points, network control is pain points, network documentation for resilience, cyber protection, threat detection and awareness, data loss protection, identity management. In my experience, both in the Army and in business and in the defense world, perfectly normal, and it's all a matter of scale. These are normal, and these aren't going to go away.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. At what point when you guys were evaluating everything and I work with you, Carl, so I know how you work and I always appreciate how you say, this is our problem, but here's our solution and here's our phase solution. So at what point did you start talking to Corsica? What point did we start to enter the picture?
So early on, as I was assessing the environment that ATC had, some of our vendor ecosystem wasn't particularly well aligned. Sure. And I started looking for alternatives. Because I wanted a partner. I don't want somebody to just call in help tickets to. I don't want somebody that just manages firewalls. I wanted a design engineering service delivery partner because I'm the first CIO of ATC Development. And we're a $500 million company. We're big, we're strong, we're complex, and I'm right now it. And so I needed someone that can help me do the plans and engineering, help me phase out the execution of improvements, and help me shape and then execute my strategic vision for our company, which is, for me, is pretty simple. Phase 0 is assess my environment. That's spoken like an Army guy, right? Phase one is control my environment. You can't do anything until you can get your hands on it. Phase 3 is optimize. And then down the road, I want to validate our optimizations. And then I want to accelerate change, right? Not interested in changing for change's sake. And so I wanted a partner that could deliver that level of teamwork with me, because I don't have a staff, and so as I was talking to several vendors, some I felt were a little small to provide that level of support. Some were so big they weren't interested. It's the whole Goldilocks and the Three Bears thing. Some were too small, some were too big, some was just right. And interestingly, what sold me on Corsica was the team that I met, and I didn't have any prior connection, other than I knew, one guy who was on your one of your SOC centers, and because he used to be my intern. And he said, "Hey, look at Corsica." Okay, let me look at Corsica. And I talked to your sales team, and they treated me with such respect. And they didn't come pitching me the answer to my question without even listening to me. They actually approached me as a human. We approached each other as teammates, and they developed trust pretty quickly. And for me, I had to make a fast decision, and I had to be able to trust. And not that I'd get hemmed up in a contract that I couldn't move around in.
Sure.
But a relationship that we could work with each other. And so far, that's exactly what I have found in Corsica. Long answer to a short question.
No, I mean, it's good though. I think you laid it out perfectly as far as what you needed, how you got there, and why you made that decision. So let me ask you, in all the services that you get from Corsica, what do you, I don't want to say like what's the most valuable, but what do you like about them? Is there one thing that you like over others, or is it kind of a mix of all of them?
It is truly a mix, okay?
Sure.
And you know, of course, Jared, you're my virtual CIO. We are, I believe, partners in this endeavor. And
Absolutely.
I think the thing I appreciate most is you and I can work directly and honestly.
Hmm.
Hey, there was a problem with this particular deployment. Okay, let's do an after action and look at it. Let's
Yeah.
analyze the problem. Let's
Yeah.
constantly improve. And I believe y'all are constantly improving. Um, I know I'm constantly loading the wagon. You know, it's that level of I know I can pick up the phone.
Hmm.
You trust me not to, pick up the bat phone on a small call, but when I pick up the bat phone on a real call, y'all respond.
Yeah.
And we have that mutual respect that I think works. For me, that's what matters. Anybody can set up computers.
Hmm.
They're really, I mean, anybody with some training can. But you understand the level of work we're trying to do. We're trying to transform a business,
Yeah.
and I believe y'all help me with that.
I appreciate that. And I think that's, really what you want in anything. I mean, I think about how it brought me back to like your career and how you do things. And again, I maybe it's just impressive seeing what you've done and the titles you held and the education you have. Um, but I think that's what I've always respected about you is that movement forward. You're not, uh, it's easy to get stagnant, especially in IT. You see people in IT who stay with the same skill set, stay in the same job, and they never learn anything, they never grow because it's a lot. It's an ever changing landscape. And you have to be, feet on the ground. You have to be learning. You have to be willing to, as Joe Rogan says, ask the stupid questions, right? Like, I think it's Joe Rogan who says that. But anyway, I think that's what he does in everything. Like, he asks the questions that nobody else wants to, but then he learns them and then he grows from them. So I think that's valuable.
Well, it's interesting you put it that way because that was one of the agreements that Woody and I had going into it. Says, okay, Woody, I'm interested in doing this because I know nothing about property development and apartment management. I want to learn those trades. That's interesting to me. And he
Yeah.
said, okay, seems like a fair trade. And oh my goodness, I have absolutely learned a boatload in the last year and only scratched the surface.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think we've talked about kind of your pain points and how we've helped you with those and kind of expanding your view of everything that's going on within your organization, but also helping in the planning, the implementation, and really being a partner. Is there any way that our services are really impacting any way, shape, or form the residents, the people that you're serving? Because that's really the heart behind ATC, right? Is helping the residents and building that value.
Because of where we are right now in our development cycle, in terms of what you and I are doing on a daily
Yeah,
basis, right now, not yet.
yeah.
Because one of the things I've got to do is get a consistent baseline ready to go that I can detect, I can prevent, protect, respond to, ensure that the business functions are rolling. I believe that we're a very short time away from that part being stable. The conversation I want to have with you in X number of months is what can we do for the residents?
Yeah.
And then that's where I think, like I know working with the Corsica team, y'all have helped me with policy, you've helped me with some industry understanding, what else is out there. I come from a defense background. I don't want to kill my residents. I actually want to do the exact opposite. So the approaches are a little different. And the opportunity, I think, is to put our resources together, from a technology background to the breadth of your business, Corsica, and the breadth of the apartment industry. Hey, what's there? And I think there's tremendous opportunity for integration and capability development for residents that we're not there yet. But I do think we can save money for them, improve money for us, and improve security and capability across the board.
So that kind of like rolls into the next thing, right? So as far as like the future, like where in like the tech roadmap are you saying like this is where I want to be right here? Is there something where in 1 year I want X? And I think, we've kind of talked about like stabilizing and things like that, but is there anything that you're looking at where you want to look back, 6 months or a year and say, I'm glad we finished X?
Well, we're absolutely on the path to do those things, and they're very boring things. I get my user management and my machine management and all that stuff taken care of. But looking forward, where do I want to be at the next sort of gates is, man, I want to design a smart building.
Mm,
I want to design self-healing appliances or
wow.
self-reporting appliances that,
Yeah.
man, it's Augusta, Georgia. It's 97 degrees today. The thing that eats our lunch the most in any apartment management firm here is service on air conditioners. Man, if we could find a way to have one that would report 5 days before that compressor blows and the residents never know it,
Hmm.
we just come, here's a new machine, boom, it's done, and your air conditioner always works. To me, that would be nirvana.
I love the purpose you have. It's like I want a smart building because I want it to do things for me. I want it to report. I want it to see the things that nobody's seeing, to report on the things that nobody's reporting on. And really, when you think about it, what you're asking for from your building, it's kind of like cyber services. It's kind of like a SIM.
Mm-hmm.
And you're the SOC that's reading it, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
want to know the anomalies that are happening. I want to know when they're happening, and I want to be able to read it and go, these are the things that I need to address.
And it is absolutely possible. And I think these are open markets for development.
Yeah.
You and I both know if I suddenly start getting electricity fluctuations in my HVACs, something's wrong.
Right.
All right, so that's sensor. I don't want to get all esoteric on it, but there's ways to do what I'm talking about. Jared, you and I may have to go build them ourselves.
Yeah. Hey, listen, that sounds great. I remember listening to a story about it was somebody talking about like an investment opportunity. They said, what's the one investment opportunity that you were upset that you didn't move forward on? And they said a guy
Besides
came to
NVIDIA,
me. Yeah. I had on my stock in Blockbuster. But he said a guy came up to me and he said, I have this idea for a business where basically what we'll do is we'll pick you up in our car and then we'll drive you somewhere. And they say, and they go, man, that's never going to work. Like people are going to get murdered. And they go, no, it's going to be great. Well, it was obviously Uber. But when you hear that idea, it's like, that is crazy. Like, why would anyone do that? And I think you don't know, really how was that made possible? Technology. You couldn't have done that with a beeper back in the day. To pick somebody up, to track, to pay, and everything else that it does to protect the company, protect the driver, for people to get paid. So yeah,
well, and that's where looking at your technology, Internet of Things, right? People say Internet
yeah.
of Things, and I think a lot of folks still misunderstand some of the key components of what that means. And
Hmm.
it's an ecosystem. How do
Yeah.
these things work together or against each
Mm.
other in a common environment? I don't care if my refrigerator sends me an email says I need to go get milk, or maybe I do. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
how does that work with other aspects of my life? Are there things that can make life easier without
Hmm.
being exorbitant or exposing you to privacy concerns? I'm heavy on cyber ethics. Just because I can be Big Brother does not mean I should be Big Brother in any way.
Mm. Well, so kind of wrapping up here, given everything that you've said, all the pain points and kind of some results that have kind of come through there and what we're looking forward to, would you say that, I mean, and just honestly, that you're in a better place with Corsica? Have they helped you in that? Have they accelerated in any way, shape, or form? Or what would be your take on that, I suppose?
Well, I'm looking. I just published my annual report to the executive council of our company. We wouldn't be nowhere that we are today without Corsica as a teammate. You helped get us where I would say openly we're largely on schedule. I'm comfortable with where we are on the deviations, and it's mainly because when you and I and the teams that support us decide on something, it gets done. I don't have to keep touching the rock, as it were.
Mm.
And I can count on you to do it. In fact, we're several months into our relationship, and that's getting better.
Hmm.
We're both finding ways to improve that. So this time next year, I think we'll be even further along. So we moved the needle tremendously from a year ago in this company. And if I were to win the lottery or get hit by a beer truck tomorrow, the company would be okay. And
Well, Carl, let's hope for the win the lottery, or I think like you and I've always said, there's some sort of rich cousin that comes out or some relative that says,
absolutely, absolutely.
hey, by the way, and like I've said before, Carl, if it happens to me, I'm taking you with me.
Sounds
Um,
like a plan.
Listen, I like you, Carl, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about these things and just really to kind of get into your mind and how the business works, what we're doing to help you, and kind of the pain points. And I think it really helps understand, it takes away the mystery of IT because a lot of times people don't understand what IT can do for them and how it can help improve their business. They just think it's this expense I have to pay, these people I have to pay that don't do anything, but you're really getting ahead of it. I was just talking to my wife. I have this picture on my phone that I really
Hopefully not
like.
of me.
No, 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 no.
Okay.
But it's a mason jar, and it's got like a few pennies at the bottom, and it says my IT budget before a cyber event. And then the next picture is it full and overflowing, and it says my IT budget after a cyber event. And I think what really you see, I mean, obviously because of your experience and everything else, is you invest, you put that time in there, not because it's worthless, but because you're trying to make people's lives better, but you're trying to keep them safe. You're trying to keep work flowing.
Yeah, and for an IT professional, the challenge is communicating to your stakeholders and often the purse holders of this non-fun stuff. No, it's a cost center. But you're really got to start communicating in ways to where you're controlling a cost center. It is like insurance to a point. And then if your business is geared to let technology serve you and your customers, it becomes a profit center, or it can. You got to think about it all the way through. But it does take a Sherpa. Now, if you don't have an IT professional on your staff, y'all are good partners for doing that. If you've got nobody, and if you've got a professional staff, it makes a really strong relationship on site and off.
I appreciate that, Carl. Well, again, thank you for your time, sir. Hopefully I get up to Augusta, see you again. Probably not when it's 97, because I think we're in the high 80s, maybe 90s. So
I'll see you in October.
yeah. Well, here in the South, we're just talking about that. You stay inside until the heat kind of dissipates, and then you go outside again. So, but again, I appreciate your time. Yeah, have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Jared. I greatly appreciate it. Take care.
You too.